The content provided in this program is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed are solely those of the individuals involved who express them. They do not necessarily reflect the official policies, positions, or endorsements of the hosting platform Bounce Up Central Media Network or its affiliates. Bounce Up Central Media Network does not warrant or guarantee the accuracy, adequacy, quality, validity, completeness, or suitability of any information for any purpose. In no event shall Bounce Up Central Media Network be held liable for any inaccuracies, errors, or omissions with respect to the information in the transmission or any part thereof or for any damage arising therefrom. The entire risk and the accuracy, adequacy, completeness, validity, and quality of any information is within the show's content producer. In no event will Bounce Up Central Media Network, its heirs, or assigns be liable to any party for direct, indirect, special, punitive, or consequential damages or any other damages arising in any way out of the production that has been aired or is about to be aired. Thank you for watching.
You must prepare for war. You must be ready for battle. It's true. Lego the beast. We the champions. We the champions. We the champions. Just only Mr. Mashup. Everything I get mash up. When I touch the stage, I make the people put their hands up. Yeah, you know we camera. That is how we raise up. Like Ratty and say, everybody jump fuck off. Some people don't rate me, but we don't give up. If you have a hater, let me see your hands them up. And let them fools be talking. My dogs do more than barking. We about that action, we ain't really come to talk. Tell them hush them out. If they really don't know what they're talking about. Overconfident about they run the wrong. But I promise you one thing. Anytime you step foot with our we inside this ring, we gon' be the last one standing. From the time we strike up the band, watch the people them start to jam. We'll be the last one standing. Watch the hand and foot start to swing. Now we mash up everything. Now hey, 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 hey.
Dauntless Defenders of Good Governance. Join host Fearless Warrior and the Dauntless crew every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Tune in each week for enlightening discussions, special guest interviews, on-the-scene coverage of news, political events, and all topics related to good governance. Watch the show live on our Bounce Up Central platform and social media channels, YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. Keep the conversation going, even after the show. Chat in real time on our 24-hour live chat on Bounce Up Central. For more news, informative content, entertainment, special events, discussion forums, Bounce Up Radio, TGIF watch parties, and to even bus a mark anonymously, visit our Bounce Up Central Community Hub, the platform that's we ting, created for we, by we.
Yes, good evening to the people. This is Dauntless Defenders of Good Governance, and we are here tonight, and we do have our special guest who will be joining us, our economist that will be coming in this evening and joining us so that we can get a perspective on what is happening with the economy of Trinidad and Tobago and the outlook, and we also looking at a number of things. Now, people would have sent me some link to some, and I know the people who would have been hosting that show, but I know the individual, which is the bacchanalist, and I tend to stay far away from her because, one, she's a danger to herself and to public. So there's nothing that individual will say that will convince me of the BS that she's going to be spewing and talking. So I'm really not in too much into it, basically. There are those who like that kind of entertainment, but we here, I'm not into that type of entertainment. Trust me. So this evening, people, I want to just talk about a few things because my guest will be joining me in a short while, and I want to talk about a few things that have been the talk of the town in terms of the governance issue in Trinidad and Tobago. And while people are on social media spreading this false narrative that Trinidad and Tobago signed some big deal with Exxon Mobil, the first thing that we need to know is what is this so-called deal that they signed with Exxon Mobil, and does Exxon Mobil have the authority to go into Venezuela water or anybody water? And even if they come into Trinidad and Tobago's waters, what will be our royalty that we'll be deriving from that, and how are we going to benefit on an overall from Exxon Mobil? Because as far as I was hearing and reading is that Exxon Mobil is going away with the largest part of the share of the cake when it comes to drilling for the oil production in Guyana. And there are Guyanese who are complaining at this point in time that they don't know what kind of deal that the Guyana government would have signed with Exxon Mobil. And apparently Exxon Mobil seems to be going here, there, and every way, looking for the best deal that they will benefit and the country does not really benefit. And that is a dangerous thing. So we have to look at that. We have to look at that and see where they're going with this whole thing with Exxon Mobil in Trinidad and Tobago, because our biggest partners is really Shell, BP, BP by over one or two of these companies. But we have a number of people who we do work with, and we get back royalties, substantial royalties from these companies. Last time Trinidad and Tobago signed a deal, you see where Mr. Stuart Young had to run with the Prime Minister, go all over the place to get back with money, get back with proper royalties for our country. Because these fools would have signed deals and basically give away our patrimony of Trinidad and Tobago. Strange things that are happening in Trinidad and Tobago. Let me go to this thing that happened on a taxi stand. Very, very disturbing. This would have happened on a taxi stand for two passengers. Two passengers. A man nearly lost his life in a big scuffle for two passengers. Let me show you all this. Good evening, Daniela. Let me just say good evening to Daniela Williams. Hey, you're back, Daniela. I thought you went into hibernation, but you are back because everybody asking, where's Daniela? Where's Daniela? Where's Daniela? But you are back, you are back, you are back. Althea, David Clark, Wayne Gibson, and all the others who are here to taking the knowledge of our economy and where we're going. Oh, you just passing through again. Okay. No problem. We will take that job. We will take that job. I just passing through. We will take that job. So I'm going to show you this video here of where a man nearly lost his life. Lost his life, you know. For what? 2 passengers. Pay attention. Look at it. Two drivers, you know. You telling me 2 drivers fighting for passenger? 2 passengers, you know. And this happens on a regular basis on many of the taxi stands. It just goes to show you how some people have just lost it as a society for any and anything now. 2 passengers, watch that. 2 passengers, you know. You telling me guys will reach 2 in Trinidad on a day-to-day basis on these taxi stands, you know. Yes, I call the man first. How you will take the man? And that is kind of foolishness that we just had to teach you. But I also want to show you this video. You're telling me? You telling me? Yes, one of them bad. And that's why I decided to highlight the tail today. Because they're overdoing it. But I saw somebody would have written a little a complaint in on the social media. And in making their complaint, they were talking about what was happening on Maracas Beach. How people are now intimidating, gangstering people, the pedestrian, the beach goers, to take the chairs and the umbrellas rented from them. And there are a number of them now doing the lucrative business. And if they don't take it, sometimes they come in and manipulate you, run you from your own spot on Maracas Beach, so that they can set up the table and the chair because they say you taking up space. Behavior of your beach. I'm telling you, they literally fighting and want to beat pedestrians, the public too, because they don't want to take the beach chairs and the beach thing. And I never believe it until somebody sent me the video. No, I never believed it. I said, boy, don't take that, boy, don't study that. Until I saw this. Pay attention. Let me do something here. Hold on. Sorry, but hold on. Let me do something here quick. Hold on.
Warning. The following contains scenes of graphic violence that some viewers may find disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Now we'll get back to the video. This is on Baracus Beach. This seems to be the new norm on Baracus Beach. And people taping it. Watch the fellas and them, you know. Them taping this thing. Because a man come and he decides he wants to set up his business. They're fighting and look at them barely kill the man on the beach. Well, you lucky and according to the time. You lucky. But this seems to be the new norm. This seems to be the new norm. And if not now, this person has been complaining until they said, look at there. And the guy who's being beaten on the ground was the guy who was setting up his little business, his steady thing. And look at what they're doing, this man. Literally beating the hell out of him. And some of them who right around the area, who want to control the beach and control what you take from them in terms of the beach chairs and these things, they literally stand up, beating up the man, and then taking the camera and filming it. This is where they take on. This is where they take in. Where's the police? And they normally have a lot of police up on Baracus Beach. Look how you hitting this man like if there's a child. The man balling, you know. The man is balling in this whole thing, you know. They're hitting the man all in the head. If that man fall on, and that new thing has been doing right through these days, where they're fighting with you, but they're kicking you for your head. They want to slap you in your head. Everything is for your head. Wait this. Wait this. What is this? And don't feel this thing going to the police, eh? This video was sent to the police. And up to now, not one of them was captured, and all of the faces showing right here. All who participated, I do not remember very much, but not one of them, was brought in, questioned, nothing at all. Is that the kind of governance system that we really want happening in our country? That everybody operating like vigilantes now. Nobody having the respect for rule of law. And watch them. Nobody is saying, well, all right, well, all of us could eat our food and this thing. One man alone want to have at least 100 beach chairs. And he want to sell his thing. Beach chairs, beach everything, the seat, the hat, the everything. I don't know, it's more that numbers probably you have a different thing of what is happening here. I know the video you talking about, you know, but not this one. I think I mixed up the two. But it just goes to show you that is how violent our society has become. And it's going to get worse. Because I got reports today. Say let's go by one or two of them places. And you'll see the amount of women who are now indulging in alcoholism again. Drinking more than ever before. The women and them are gambling more than ever before. Because children have books to buy, mouths to feed. Prostitution seems to be on the rise. They ain't going by Murray Street again. They're doing it right in the casino now. Pick up your man and go. Do your thing in the back of some way. But it just goes to show you a lot of women in this society are under extreme stress. Even though some of them causing the crime, even though some of them causing crime in this country, but I'm telling you, our society seems to be going down a slippery slope. And especially where there's no employment. A lot of the employment has now disappeared. Until I get reported today and all. Alright, Mr. Rima. Until I got a report today and all of the airport authority. Big bacchanal in the airport authority. Staff getting the salaries cut. If they don't send the children to a certain school. That somebody on the board seems to be holding big rank. And he have a school. Somebody on the board has a school. Some big name school. And if you don't send your child to his school, or his wife's school, or his family school, your salary getting cut. One person was getting $25,000. $25,000. And when they decided not sending the child to that particular school, that one of the board members controlled, their salary was cut by a whole whipping. $10,000 was taken away from them. So they now went home with $15,000. So the more you send your children to that school, if the more who they pay, the more money they pay you to make sure that your child going to that school. And they only funding certain things like the school, the parties, the pets, certain things once you are affiliated. And right now the workers of the airport authority is calling on the management I mean, calling the Prime Minister. They call on the Prime Minister to remove the chairman, of the Airport Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. The call is now being made for the airport chairman, the airport authority's chairman, to be removed from the position because of what he is indulging in, and good governance is not taking place at the school. Now, there's some documents that I have to review it first. I have to review them first. I am not just going by what is there, but I'm going to review it. Well, she has to take a stand because it is going to affect the airport, and the minister, Mr. Zakor, he needs to intervene in this thing, because at the end of the day, no, the airport falls under the Ministry of Carl falls under the Ministry of Finance still. So yeah, Zakor will be the man in charge of the airport authority, certain parts of it. So it's a serious thing. Victimization is taking place at the airport authority. Victimization is seriously taking place at the airport authority, and the workers, management, nobody is being able to work in peace at the airport authority at this point in time. Your salary is just being cut. No reason. If you don't send your children, if you have children, you have to send your children to that private school. It's a very popular private school in the East. I am being told it's a very popular private school. A lot of private teachers who a lot of the teachers who used to teach at the school, they would have told me about it. They said, yes, it is a very good school. The parents, the owners of the school, they are not nice. But the school is a very good school in terms of their pass rate and all these different things. Okay, all right, okay. Okay, I graduated. So the chairman. So just imagine if these fellows get a hold of companies like MTS and other government state-run enterprises, what other wickedness that will take place? Well, Jolene John is saying that the airport will not be, the terminal in Tobago will not be ready until next year, August. When you ask how much money more will be spent on the airport, it's only $1.1 million extra. So it's a deliberate attempt. They're saying how it's not really ready for opening as yet, David. They're saying it still have work to be done. The runway is not paved, but it's, when you ask, they're saying it will be a cost overrun. When you look at how much is the cost overrun, $1.1 million. $1.1 million is the cost overrun. And Fali is so stupid. Fali going along with that foolishness. as though there is a massive overrun in cost for the airport, when they knew fully well that $44 million was spent on the people and them who did not want to remove themselves from the property. But they had to take people property, and property in Tobago is expensive. And you had to give people a fair rate for the property. $44 million is not bad. It's not bad because they had to move a number of properties from there. So $44 million wasn't bad. Because those properties in Tobago costing millions. So if you had to move 10 or 15 or 20, and some of them is guest houses and all them things, you had to pay money. You had to pay money. And I do agree with people just going in, taking people land just so. And you don't pay them money that the land is worth. Well, the Minister of Health is what I answered that one. Central Block is ready. Central Block is ready. They say they have to get 1,800 nurses. They have 400 and something doctors short. Go and look at them in the private sector. Go and look at plenty of them in the private sector. But they say they have to get 1,800 nurses on staff to get full complementary of nurses that they're supposed to have. But there's a big backlash going with that whole thing because they don't want to pay the nurses and them. They don't want to pay the nurses and them the money, the overtime money in which they work hard for, in which it is called pool. So they pool the money in terms of they go and they during come out of work, they call it pooling. So they don't want to pay them the pool money. And they find all kind of excuses not to pay the nurses and them the pool money when they do overtime. And if they take a day off, the victimize, that is where we're victimizing the workers and them. So there's a number of things that is happening, but the airport authority is the look at this point in time. Be vigilant with the airport authority and this pool that is now being banged around in the public domain that somebody on the board seems to have full control of and is the owner of this pool. Please, it is a lot of mismanagement, abuse that is already taking place, salary cuts for no reason. If your child not going to school, you get a salary cut, they cutting your salary. That could never be happening. No, that can't be right. And you see, a lot of people don't want, some of them holding down senior positions, but they don't want to make no noise too much because you remember they send home people in. And if people had to pay for the children, and they had to, the holding people to ransom in this country, you know. A lot of people are being held to ransom in this country, you know. So, the airport authority is now the number one massive corruption that is now taking place. Like corruption, serious corruption that has already started. And the board of the, I don't want to say who on the board yet. That's why I say I had to get my advice first. But we will be monitoring it. And as soon as I get the go ahead to call names based on the fact of the information, then we will be able to think. But a number of people have already contacted me this afternoon with this whole thing, and they have told me what is happening. So they're begging, they're calling on the Prime Minister and the Minister of Works and Transport to intervene in this whole matter before it gets out of control. They say when certain board members come into work, they come into work with plenty security because they're afraid what could end up happening to them. Also today, in one of my groups that I would have been dealing with, Marlene, you're late, Marlene. Also today, I would have gotten a report today from one of the groups that I'm involved in, because I'm a senior admin in one or two other groups. A police officer, well, it have some officers in our group, and it have different people who hold in political, different side of the coins and all them things, but we deal with the issue. And it came to my attention today that one of the officers who, give a little advice and talk and different things, was seriously threatened today. Seriously threatened today. And she had to remove herself from off the group. Tomorrow, I am going to say the name of that individual who has been threatening that officer. Serious disciplinary action. I am going to very much take it to the police, because this is a serious threat. You cannot threaten. You can't threaten people in that kind of manner and expect there will not be consequences for your action. I am not condoning nobody, threatening nobody in that kind of manner, and expect to remain on the group. Likewise, in anything that I'm involved in, you can't threaten people in that kind of manner. No. So we'll be looking at that, and tomorrow I will definitely call the name, and if I get the picture, I'm going to put up the person's picture along with the comments and the statements in which they made and the threat in which they sent to the officer. I'm not playing that. Yes, I will talk about officers. We have all the things I just told you that, Mr. Clark, because it was done on our page, a page that I am a senior admin of. So we will put up all the information, the picture, every single thing, because we already sent it off to the police for full investigation. But we will deal with them. We are not letting this one slide. I don't care whether or not if they like what the officer they say. Sometimes they don't like what the officer they say. Whether she's what, whether she's who, I don't care. That is not my concern. The moment they're threatening somebody's life, I take that very, very serious. Also, let me move right along. Well, Miss Rennie, let me tell you something. There are people. There's some people who bashing right now the government. It has some people bashing the government. There are people who are actually doing it. Yes, there are people who are speaking out. There are people who are speaking out on what is happening and the ethnicity imbalance that is going on board at this point in time. But there are also ground activists within the UNC who are crying shame of what is happening in the UNC actually. and they are very much upset with how things are being done and how they and all are being treated in the UNC as people of other ethnic group, ethnicity operating and functioning within the UNC. So there are a lot of people who are very much upset at this point in time with even the government, and they are part of the government. So until there's one who is now who was saying $300 a CPAP worker should be given, but when they do check it out, he's now saying he's now setting up the PayPal and all these things because there's no money to give none of these so-called activists. No money. They ain't getting no money. There's no contract to give them at this point in time. No nothing. Right now, they're salting on the wing. Oh, well, we ain't going out here because still have those dotish people, Jennings, that are saying, well, it still have some, not saying all, but there are a lot of people who are saying if an election is called in the morning, the UNC gone. And that is why we have to be ready for office. We have to be ready for office. No, I'm not prejudicing the evidence. No. Let the police go and do the investigation. We will send it to them. We are not prejudiced because it was in public. It was on a public platform. It was done. It wasn't done in no hiding, and go seek. It was a public platform. So they're not with we. The police have their business to do. We have our business to do as media personnel in this country. Well, we are looking at it very much. The supporters and lawyers so loyal these days now. Right now, the supporters just holding on. They get afraid to talk. And if they talk, they mightn't get nothing. Okay. Well, condolence to you, Miss Payne. Condolence to you on your brother's passing. And I know that, it is a time that you need a little strength. But we're glad to see you back here today. And we will try to console you and make you happy as the night progresses. Yeah, don't look out for no election right now. The woman is going to be stepping down just now. She's just waiting to take the presidency role. Take what I'm telling you. Kamala wants to be the next president of Trinidad and Tobago. So she wants presidential money now. So, let me clear up one more thing and then we go straight to and then we take a break and then we will go to our guest that is supposed to be coming in and we will start our official interview with Mr. Michael Henry, the economist, or economist Michael Henry, and you can ask all the questions. You can ask all the questions, and he will be willing to answer once it is within his purview, and he will be able to answer it. So, Okay. So, now yesterday, let me just give away some quick up-to-date on what is happening. There's a number of things happening to it. Yesterday, Work Credit Union Board was given a mandate that they had to call a special general meeting, and they had yesterday, Friday would have been the deadline date to call this special general meeting. They deliberately did not call the special general meeting that the one that members called for from the credit union. So the membership is demanding a meeting, and the board has rejected the membership, stating that the agenda for the meeting is not important to deal with. People, let me tell you something. When you are dealing with a membership organization and the membership give you a mandate that they want to hear what the supervisory committee is stating in their report, the supervisory committee have all authority, but it's not the supervisory committee that called the meeting, because the board refused to call the meeting for the supervisory committee, and now the membership called for the meeting of the credit union, and they called on the board to call the meeting, and on Friday that meeting never was posted in the papers or advertised for when it would be, because they must have it within 30 days or 14 days. 14 to 30 days. So they have deliberately turned their back on the general membership of Work Credit Union. The board has now run away like a runaway horse, doing what they want. The Commissioner for Cooperatives seems to be allowing and promoting the foolish agenda of this board of Work Credit Union. And I want to put Work Credit Union on notice. I want to put Work Credit Union on notice tonight that this foolishness will not take place, and they will call that AGM. And Dauntless must remove herself as the president of the credit union and not sit in the chair and compromise an investigation that has already taken place, that she is involved in. Ms. Dauntless must remove herself from the presidency of Work Credit Union with immediate effect, pending the special AGM that is supposed to be having, that they have denied the general membership that opportunity to have. Well, look out for what is going to be happening. And I very much will be putting on my jacket, and I'll be taking it to a different level. And those who never see me go in certain places, wait till you see me put on my jacket, and I go into that place and deal with this matter on a serious level. Work Credit Union is not bigger than Work Credit Union board is not bigger than the general membership. Work Credit Union board cannot hire a consultant as no manager. Work Credit Union board has now hired and retaining and hired a consultant paying over $100 and something thousand of membership money without the approval, without the general membership approval. World Credit Union Board cannot find the signature of the supervisory committee for the AGM. World Credit Union Board has failed to even call the AGM because it's stretching it out, because some board members want to live lofty by getting a salary when they're supposed to not be getting a salary, but they are being paid a salary when the general membership never approved that. World Credit Union Board has taken a decision to shut down the Arima branch, sending home workers when they have 2 more years to pay on that contract on the branch. Didn't do a feasibility study. They never did a feasibility study. And now, you, the membership, have to pay millions of dollars for a branch that is unoccupied and will not have no staff occupying that branch. Work Credit Union Board. Work Credit Union Board. Well, right now the credit union is being called the $100,000 credit union. Put 35,000 and again $350,000. Imagine that. Put 35 and get 350,000. And certain people are abusing this loan. What is the board doing about it? What is the board doing about it? What is the Commissioner for Cooperatives doing about it? Playing games. Are we going to see another Hindu credit union in this country because the Commissioner for Cooperatives would have failed to do due diligence and carry out their work at what is happening at Work Credit Union? Is the Commissioner failing in their due diligence, the financial fiduciary responsibilities to ensure that a credit union that is over $400 million does not crumble and fall because they fail to do what is right? Look at the report of Hindu Credit Union and you will see for yourself Well, look at Hindu Credit Union and how Hindu Credit Union failed. It was every Tom, Dick, and Harry. It was a feeling frenzy. The president said, you take loan, you get loan. This one get loan. That one get loan. Yes, put $35,000 and get $350,000. Madness in this place. Madness in this place. But they say, it is said that some one of the board members buy a property for over 1 point something million dollars. I ain't calling the board member name yet. buy a property for over 1 point something million dollars. And nothing's wrong with it. Nothing is wrong with that, you know. But when they don't want to call the special general meeting and board members want to be collecting a salary to pay for this house or for the general membership, because to get a house, to pay for a house with mortgage of 1.8, 1 point something million dollars, you're talking about your salary had to be upwards of $18,000. So just picture I am calling on central bank to get involved. Central bank needs to get involved in what is happening in these credit unions. Because I am saying it and I'm saying it over and over again. Because there are people who know for a fact they don't want me to talk in. They don't want me to talk. But there's a crisis that is happening in the movement, and those who don't want to deal with it, they're the business. And the Commissioner for Cooperatives is the center of this whole crisis of what is happening at all the credit unions in this country. And I don't care whether or not who want to brush who and who don't want to brush who and who want to thing who and who want to this who so that they could be protected. I don't care about that. You see, when it comes down to good governance, I am dealing with that. So who want to brush who from the commissioner's department to keep position in certain credit unions and to be protected by commissioner's department? Well, we go talk now, you know. We go talk. Because that seems to be the new norm now. Spread your legs. Don't read, you can't do nothing. So you spread your leg. Whatever happen, bam, bam, bam. Alright. Then go woman now. Don't touch she. Nah. But what them what? Do the membership what? Nah, don't nah. That can happen. Well, that's the thing. I don't need no bodyguard. Them need bodyguard. I don't need bodyguard. I don't need bodyguard. Because people are fed up in this country of poor governance issues. They are fed up. They're fed up. They're fed up. The banking sector doing all kind of wickedness to poor people. And people are be taking that right through. And now you have the credit union that is supposed to be the poor man to make sure that the poor man has to become to make people become to have wealth creation for poor people. Because every credit union started from the poor man. $18 billion. $18 to $19 billion that is in the credit union sector. And the Commissioner for Cooperatives, playing games. The department is playing games with credit unions in this country. And I will say it and I will say it. I don't business with it say. They could call me in the morning and say, but oh God, you know that will attack the confidence of the credit union movement and this and that, the other, until I don't business. It's not about the confidence of the credit union movement. The membership have a right to know what is happening in the credit union. And no board supposed to be taking no people money to fly to Tom, Dick and Harry country. Eh? They're not supposed to be taking people money to go on a spree, to go in this hotel, that hotel, this hotel, line, party. And when you have somebody to bring back to the table, none of them to tell you what to bring back. You know what they bring back? A little token. They can't bring back no knowledge, no information, no nothing. You know why? Because some of them who are in board and on certain board position in credit unions, in bed with people in the government, in this government, they're in bed. And we will call them out. We will call out all the names of all the people who sitting on state board, but they also sitting on the boards of credit union. And that's why you see nothing is going to happen. But thank God we have something called the court. If we have to go to the court, thank God we have that. We will call them out. Because if you have a minister who wife sitting on a board, his son sitting on a board, the son working and all, your wife sitting on a board, the next one minister wife sitting on a board, a minister's son, daughter, everybody working, who get big position in Wasa as managers. Look, oil has set a chokers in this country. And people don't want people to talk. I don't care who vex. They can say what they want. This country is going to hell in a handbasket. And some people want to pee in your face and tell you it's raining. Well, they ain't peeing in my face and telling me it's raining. Because I am going to talk the truth, nothing but the truth, and the whole truth when it comes down to you and your public funds. And that is why, when I saw what went on with that lady, and I made the clarion call with the family, I will make the clarion call again tonight. But not just for that family. Because people have called me yesterday and today, and they have said, no, it mustn't be only for them alone. But I will make the clarion call because we do need financial help. Because when you're going to the battle and you have to pay legal fees, yeah, because there are certain things that you have to pay. You have to get advice and you have to get certain things going. You also have to pay for certain things to happen. We will be asking, well, not we. Let me make it clear, not we. I will be asking for people to make donations. Because there are times that when we want to go out there, we want to give somebody some hampers. We might want to give them something. We have court matters to file. Because let me tell you something. We can't sit down and wait on nobody to do things for we just so, you know. So we had to pay some of these lawyers and them, and some of them calling it $16,000 based on what the case may be. If it's contract law, you have to get a contract lawyer to deal with that, and some of them telling you $16,000 just to come and sit down in the office. And when we pay that money, the retainer fee, we must know that when we pay that money, we're going to get what we deserve. That when workers, not even just workers, but anybody who may have matters and seeking legal advice or need a little help to get certain things or to get assistance with whether it's food, whether it's to get assistance to buy some material to fix the house or something, we must be able at this point in time to assist anybody. And that's what we're moving forward with now. So, tomorrow, I will put up the information. If you want to contribute, you contribute. If you don't want to contribute, We're not begging you. If you want to put in $10, $15, $20, $30, whatever you want to put in, that money is not going to be used in my pocket, but it will be going towards helping our people in this place here for Trinidad and Tobago. Because let me tell you something, we in for it for a long, long, long ride. Trust me, in this 5 years, we in for it. Well, boy, so people, we take a break. Our guest is in studio. And remember, you can ask all the questions you want to ask. And hey, I see I see Gary Hunt is on the Angostura board. Another PNM bites the dust. So he going over, and you have a few other PMIs who have left the party to take a board position with the United National Congress. I wonder what they call them. What do they call them? Because they love to say LBA. Mr. Gibson, what do you call Gary Hunt? Kelly Singh, John Jeremy, and many of them. What do you call them? Just asking. And I will be bringing it. And we're going to take this fight to a different level. This is no longer pet and powder, no. They want political war. We will give them political war. We will take a break. And we will be right back after this break. Let's go.
Dauntless Defenders of Good Governance. Join host Fearless Warrior and the Dauntless crew every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Tune in each week for enlightening discussions, special guest interviews, on-the-scene coverage of news, political events, and all topics related to good governance. Watch the show live on our Bounce Up Central platform and social media channels, YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. Keep the conversation going, even after the show. Chat in real time on our 24-hour live chat on Bounce Up Central. For more news, informative content, entertainment, special events, discussion forums, Bounce Up Radio, TGIF watch parties, and to even bus a mark anonymously, visit our Bounce Up Central Community Hub, the platform that's Weeting, created for we, by we.
Bounce Up Central Network. Tune in for shows like Let We Talk to Ting with Sister Jenny every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5:30 p.m. Dauntless Defenders of Good Governance, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Culture Points on Thursdays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 5 p.m. And Fine Point with Fearless Warrior at various showtimes. For more news, informative content, entertainment, special events, discussion forums, Bounce Up Radio, movie watch parties, and to even bus a mark anonymously, visit our Bounce Up Central Community Hub, the platform that's Weeting, created for we, by we. Keep the conversation going, even after the show. Chat in real time on our 24-hour live chat at bounceup.com. If you have a passion for news, politics, culture, music, sports, technology, and helping your community, we invite you to come join the Bounce Up Central Network family. Come join us.
All right. So let me bring on the economist, Mr. Michael Henry. Mr. Michael Henry, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Not Yeah. Oh, sorry, my mistake. I got real food in it. Go ahead again, Mr. Henry.
Good evening, sir.
All right. So I'm hearing you loud and clear. I got real food. No, I'm doing something in terms of new technology here, but you have to get
Okay.
accustomed to when you're switching. Forget it.
These things happen.
But good evening.
Good e-
So let me get into it, Mr. Henry, because I know a number of people will want to ask some questions in terms of the state of the economy and all these different things. Mr. Henry, we are seeing where CPEP, URP, reforestation, workers are being sent home on the breadline. The economy is slowing down, no construction taking place basically. Um, so there's no money being generated at this point in time basically, or turning over in the economy. What does that spell for our social services? One. And two, how does that impact on our budget and the economy?
I didn't get the first part of the question. What something with social services? Could you just repeat,
Oh,
please?
okay. Well, our you have URP being shut down, CPEP being shut down, reforestation shut down, and thousands of workers are now on the breadline. No money is being generated in terms of money coming into the country at this point in time, nor the economy is turning over in terms of money turning over, in terms of spending taking place. How does this impact on our social services?
Well, if you think in terms of social services, I don't know if you're talking from the standpoint of it will lead to greater spending on social, basically expenditure. Expenditure will relate it to maybe to grants, because people now being unemployed, right, will now have to, make calls on the government's purse, right, by way of grants. And I think MP Nyan Gadsby Dolly was going through a list of all all the avenues open to people who are fired in terms of accessing social grants. So in that sense, it it will lead to an increase in social spending on poor people grants and other forms of relief. So the government may be saving in one way in terms of paying, of course, wages to CPEP workers, but on the other hand, some of that savings will find its way into social expenditure on, if you wish, to cushion the blow of people being unemployed. So that's it. So whichever way you look at it is not a nice situation, but I think it will be a greater impact on the economy from this standpoint, because even though if you get some form of social protection, the amount that's just basically like a transfer, right, of income from one group to the next. That is not basically new income created, right? So in terms of wages earned and people could spend, and as you were saying, in terms of the money in circulation, um, basically creates a demand for goods and services, because we have to use the wages to buy food, clothes, travel, and meet the cost of living. So if that money is basically taken out of the economy, the impact could be greater in because, as I said, when you purchase food, goods and services, one person's expenditure is an next person's income. So therefore, that helps to as a multiplier effect on the economy and works through the economy. So whereas the paying of social grants and other forms of poor relief is basically, as I said, is a transfer, right? Is other people who work for that money and pay taxes, and the government could use some of that to transfer, to meet, social payments. So the loss to the economy will be bigger than any sort of expenditure generated from transfer income. You hearing me?
But yeah, I'm hearing you loud and clear. No, I just muted so that we may not have no
Yeah.
no feedback basically. But
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, well, this administration seems hell bent on probably, well, I don't know if they're looking at the IMF the whole IMF agenda. Your hand blocking your camera.
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry, I was just
I don't know if
putting up audio.
they are
Sorry.
looking at, I don't know if they're looking at implementing the IMF agenda, because in the IMF there is normally agendas. They tell you about cutting back on your social services spending, and transforming your whole public service, lessening down the public service bill. Isn't that this government looking at heading to the IMF?
No,
And if they're heading to the IMF, huh?
well, I can't say that. I don't know if, but the situation is becoming more and more dire, in which there is a possibility that if new revenue streams are not generated, and also if there is no increase in the price of let's say oil and gas, right? The situation is becoming dire now. Even under the PNM, right? When Dr. Rowley had said, instead of going to the IMF, let's take our own medicine, right? It was running a tight ship, right, where you're cutting back on things that you deem to be in terms of wasteful spending, but it didn't have the main pillars of sort of IMF sort of IMF policy in terms of sending home public sector workers, privatizing everything, like what happened, in terms of in the 1980s, right? But it had elements of tighten your belt, basically, right? And cut wasteful spending. And you could see some of it in terms of the proposed cutting of subsidies, and even though, right, for things like electricity and gas and stuff, Trinidad and Tobago was still Trinidad and Tobago consumers were still paying fairly low compared to other Caribbean countries, but some attempt was made to cut down on transfers and subsidies, right? Because that accounts for a sizable part of the government sort of budget. Okay, but so there was some, let's say, as we say, some kind of fiscal discipline that the government, the previous government, was trying to maintain while trying to get the economy to grow. Okay, and you could see, particularly after COVID, right, where the government fiscal space was even more constrained, right, and essentially, all that caused the government to lose because people wasn't the money wasn't sort of flowing, right, and the PLM government basically suffered the same fate as a number of governments in the post-COVID era, where because and I speak here about the Labour government, the Conservative government, after 14 years in power, was swept away at the polls in July last year by Labour in a landslide victory. And people just had enough of economic stringency and high increased cost of living. Okay, and the economy not growing, cost of living increasing largely. Some of it caused also by Brexit, the UK's exit from the European Union, right? So, it is a feature that the world economy, because of high prices caused by supply chains disruptions from COVID, right? And that's why people in Trinidad say, "No, the government too wicked. The government was too wicked. High price, increased prices." Now a new government come and have the prices in the supermarkets going down?
No.
Okay, right.
In
So
fact, they've gone up.
right. So government. So people, right, when they want to blame the government and saying, "Oh, they're not controlling prices," and things. If you're living in a capitalist market economy, right, governments don't basically control prices. There are no price control mechanisms, in place, right? You could possibly appeal to sellers and thing, and try to appeal to the conscience and talk about don't engage in price gouging and stuff, right? Good luck with that in Trinidad, because everybody want to jack up their prices, right? But
Yeah.
high prices in Trinidad wasn't unique to Trinidad. In the UK, it is even higher for many instances than Trinidad and Tobago. But when you tell people that, they don't want to hear that, right? They believe it's Trinidad and Tobago and the government wicked. But as I could tell you, let's say, if you go to one of the main supermarkets, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, or something like that, and you pick up a cucumber, right? Let's say a cucumber is close to £1, right? Let's say 85 to 90p in the UK, right? That's close to $8 Trinidad for one cucumber.
What?
Yes. So when people talk about, in Trinidad prices high and stuff like that, they should come to the UK, right? So right.
For
So
one potato.
yes, for one cucumber is 85, 90p, right? And if you think one pound is about 8 something Trinidad and Tobago dollars, so therefore what you actually seeing is one cucumber is $7 and something, right? So
But
all right.
when we talk fiscal, because people don't understand those terminologies like fiscal spending or fiscal policy. What is meant by that?
Fiscal policy has to do with government's budget, right? So fiscal really means, in terms of the government, revenue and expenditure, right? So the government is right. They raise their revenue through most of the revenue come through taxes, right? And right, royalties from oil companies and stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So government revenue and government expenditure, right? What the government will spend on in terms of goods and services, investment. The government have what you call like a PSIP, the public sector investment program, right? So the government may
Yeah.
want to build, of course, infrastructural projects, roads, hospitals, schools, right? Invest in terms of healthcare. Okay, so and of course, a large part of it also comes in, through wages and salaries, because the government still in our economy in Trinidad and Tobago, the government is still the largest employer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, right, a huge part of government expenditure is in terms of wages and salaries that goes to the public sector and other state companies,
Right.
right? You have to give WASA, T and Tech and stuff like that in terms of subventions and stuff like that as well, right? So so that's fiscal, and monetary is in terms of the central bank, right? Central bank in charge of monetary policy, right? So usually, so like for instance, like in the United Kingdom, right? The central bank is largely independent, right? Of the government, and the central bank, they try to of course be in lockstep with government policy, but they are largely independent in terms of in the UK they try to don't let inflation go above 2%, right? And the central bank is responsible for basically adjusting interest rates. So like on Thursday or Friday, they lowered the rate of the interest rate from I think 4.25% to 4% or so, right? In order to make borrowing cheaper, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the interest on your credit card will be cheaper. The downside is you'll usually get lower rates on your savings, but at least with the cost of credit being cheaper is a way of helping the economy to boost the economy,
Mm.
right? Yeah. So,
So
but they in terms of monetary policy, right? The Bank of England is basically like the what we call like the government's bank. So similarly here in Trinidad, the central bank is the bank for the government and all the commercial banks, right? So they are largely responsible for the flow of money in the going through the economy, right?
so
So
so when you hear the government talking about liquidity in the system, because a number of people do understand what is liquidity and how does this impact on your lending.
well, liquidity really relates to, if you wish, the how you could access credit. If let's say if a lot of money is coming into the economy, let's say if oil prices rise and the government getting a lot of money flow through taxes and royalties from the oil company, um, much more people working in the economy, and of course the government tax intake is greater. So once people have money in their pocket, they're spending. Sometimes what the banks tend to do in such a situation is you could lower the interest rate, right? And also, if basically it comes like demand and supply. If the supply of something is plentiful, the price of it will fall, right? So if a lot of money flowing through the system, the price of money, well, which is really the interest rate, will be low
Yeah.
because the supply is plentiful. If supply is scarce, right? What you try to do is it means the price of it will be higher, so the interest rate is likely to increase, right? Okay,
But
mhm.
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Yes, so that's it really. You know, remember once there's a lot of liquidity in the system, you usually find banks making a lot of loans, right? Sometimes irresponsibly so, right? Make loans available for you to buy carnival costume, to buy cars, to buy,
Mm.
because that's how they make the money, right? Okay, but if the interest rates is high, right? Because let's say tight, the economic circumstances is basically tight. You'll find the price interest rates will be higher, so it'll be much more costly to borrow, really. So
Well, I don't see
so
that happening in Trinidad because it looks like the interest rate always remain at one standard price. When they have money or don't have no money. So,
that's well that's largely because the the Trinidad banking system is like what we call like a oligopoly. It's only have a few firms. You only have a
mm,
few banks, so therefore you don't have the competition, right? So let's say like um in Trinidad, right? People like Scotiabank and then will charge you at the end of the year $300 or so for having a credit card, right? You wouldn't have that in the UK, right? You know,
mm-hmm.
actually banks will be falling over themselves to give you a credit card, but you don't have to pay like an annual fee for holding a credit card, right?
Okay.
And all these bank charges, what they, because everybody, will be hitting out about the bank charges in Trinidad, and that's because you only have a few banks. You only have about 4 or 5 banks, right? So you know, um, people will say possibly they collude, all right, and set prices in order the different charges and stuff like that. Everything they charge you for, right? So and that's how they at the end of the financial year they this thing huge profits. Everybody talking or when they get in government, they will address bank charges and bank fees and stuff like that. They ain't doing nothing because you understand they can't do the banks nothing. They
Yeah,
can't do
because
them anything.
because
They
they are
can't do
not the
them anything.
regulators. Because they are not the regulators.
Well, right, they are not the regulators. I mean, you could appeal to the banks. You could use more what we call like moral suasion to tell the banks, you know, in terms of charging fees and thing and be more compassionate. But that, as I said, that is only moral suasion. But you think they will take you on, and they will say, it's because the cost of technology. But technology is supposed to bring the price down, not drive it up. You know, you understand? So, um, like what you notice in the UK that a number of high street banks closed because banks, they move to online banking and stuff. So yeah. So, but as I said, because of the competition it have over here, right? You don't get these sort of charges and thing because competition tend to drive prices down. If you only have a few banks, right, they tend to, as I said, to collude, tacitly in order to they will appear to be in competition with one another, but basically, they meet behind the
You're
scenes
working.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
But
So
so let me ask you this question here. So let's say Trinidad and Tobago does this, well, this administration does decide to go the way of IMF. Is the IMF cheaper than China loan? Because if you had to take a loan between the IMF and China, which one would you have recommended for Trinidad and Tobago based on what the trend in which this government is heading?
that's a good question, right? I I would say um to go with the IMF, right? Because uh you know what the rules are, right? It is much more transparent. Look, for instance, Jamaica was in IMF. Had IMF loaned Barbados when Mia Mottley came to power the first time. Basically, had to go to the IMF, right? In a standby agreement. Okay, but what the rules are, and you have to meet the various, pass the various tests. But as I said, Jamaica has emerged from IMF and they are doing their economy seem to be doing well, as I would think from some of the activities I see going on in Jamaica. I may even venture to say they're doing the economy doing better than Trinidad. But yes, with China, the money appears easy up front, right? But there's less transparency. And from the experiences of some of the African countries and also places like Sri Lanka, right? You always seem to be paying back, China, and some of the things just be so onerous. And next thing you always hearing, like the Chinese government, for instance, like they seized the port in Sri Lanka, right? Because Sri Lanka couldn't pay them back. So they make it easy upfront, easy money upfront, right? But the terms, right, is not made public, right? So people don't as I said, it is less transparent, right? As opposed to dealing with the IMF and the World Bank, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. Dealing with them is basically leads to austere measures. But
Mhm.
as I said, what are the terms of the agreement, and what are the conditionalities you have to meet in terms of um, uh, basically slimming down your public service, right? So, for instance, like when Barbados went to the IMF, um, a number of public sector workers lost their jobs, right? And it was the same thing here in the mid 80s when the Naro government went to the IMF, right? Workers lost their cola, right? Um, so I'm sure you'll remember that. So and then attempts to privatize the water service. We had Community Trinidad, Severn Trent, and then
Mhm.
power gen for electricity, and um, in terms of privatizing part of the electricity generation or distribution, right? So the IMF have its strict conditionalities, but as I said, they tend to be much more transparent than Chinese loans, which appear to be, as I say, initially they will give you the money easily, but they tend to tie it into these agreements. And in the end, as I said, based on the experiences from some African countries, some Sri Lanka and other countries, right? Some of these terms are quite onerous in terms of in terms of their repayments, right? And then you hear the Chinese government coming in and seize, different assets from different countries and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, some African countries run, some of them, because they come in and they extract your minerals and stuff like that, and basically take over the place. And it seemed like it could never pay back a China loan.
But let me ask, but in terms of austerity measures, because when people hear austerity measures, could we implement our own austerity measures without damaging the economy?
Yes. When you were asking the question, my mind was basically, which is our next thing with the Chinese loan too. Before I answer a question, with the Chinese loan, so they don't put austerity measures up front. That's why I say so you could get the money, right? And if you don't use the money well, right? Based on the repayment terms, some of which are quite onerous with the Chinese, and the percentage, the interest rate at which they lend you, make the loans available to you, right? It's quite onerous, and also comes in with Chinese workers, doing the projects and stuff like that. So but basically that's what the PNM government had done, right? When Dr. Rowley had said, instead of going to the IMF, let's take our own medicine. So as I said, you will have seen it in other ways. They try to cut down on transfer payments, right? So much so it became a bit silly when the talk came out that they wanted to cut down on old age pension, and if you have more than 25,000 in the bank, and they wanted to deny you of the pension. It was subsequently said that was a public servant mistake. But the fact is, the government was always looking to save money, and hence the reason you had things like property tax, which for the life of me, I can't understand why people so against property tax. When countries all over the world pay property tax, even Jamaica, you pay property tax, right? So yes, and then of course the movement. So while they were trying to cut back in terms of expenditure, and then you went to the RIC, the Regulated Industries Commission, and basically to hike electricity prices and stuff like that. So all those things, in terms of trying to get people to pay more of their way, right? And on the revenue side, you were trying things in terms of to diversify the economy. I don't know, in terms of how extensive the diversification drive was, right? But people tend to forget that, as a former Minister of Finance in the UK said here, you don't fix the roof, right, when the rain is falling. You usually fix the roof when the sun is shining. So therefore, the country is broke, and you're trying to diversify, right? The diversification efforts call for money as well, right? So, and if you don't have the money, right, how you going to find help because remember, in the process of diversifying, it will take some time before some of the projects that you invest in will start to yield returns, right? So so you have to have income coming in from elsewhere, while some of these projects, take time, start to generate returns. Okay, so um, so in a sense, right? To answer your question, yes, the government, yet again, when Dr. Rowley had said people should try to wean themselves off the government, right? Because remember, the government, everything is the government. Everything is the government. Everybody, um, everybody, calls on the government for some, for Carnival, for Diwali, for everything. The government have to be. Plus, the government is the largest employer, right? And then, if the government doesn't dish out the money, people vex, right? Because they see the treasury as to the beck and the call. But when it's time to pay, right? Nobody wants to, right? Nobody wants to, but yet still everybody they want the smoothest road. They want to, when they reach in the hospital, they be seen quickly, right? Also, subsidized medicine, right? And of course, you make a noise that they have to wait too long in the hospital, and remember, it's free, right? Free at the point of service, right? So everybody wants the best, but when to pay for it is, if you say, well, okay, well, in order for the corporations and them to be able to carry out their jobs and stuff like that, pay a property tax, and more money will go to the corporations, and then they will think, but no, and when you have stupid politicians come in and tell them no property tax, axe the tax, and making it feel that they could always give you everything, right? You could see the sort of thing. Apart from my PAYE direct tax to the, as how to say here, HMRC, the Her Majesty's, or now His Majesty's revenue, each revenue and customs, right? I also have to pay the equivalent of a property tax, which is basically your council tax, right? And it goes like in the same thing, like with the same what band your house falls within, right? Yeah, and you have to pay it, right? Because that's for picking up your garbage, for maintaining the local police, the local fire and stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't mind people questioning, let's say if you pay a property tax and you ain't get your service, well then you have all means to question where the how your tax money is being used, right? But when you don't pay it, and then you want your parks clean, in the parks, the grounds, you want street lights, you want your grounds must be floodlit, you want your if you have an overflowing sewer, you want the corporation to come in and sort it out for you, all these things, when I get at the end of the year and it's time to pay your council tax, I say to show you the yearly amount, to show you how much percent goes to the fire, how much percent goes to the police, how much percent goes to school, right? In the area. So So they show you a breakdown, and nearly every year it always increasing, right? Sometimes it increased by about 5%, and they'll say, well, okay, this is how for this coming financial year, this is how the money will be spent, right? If it's 60% goes to the police and or on fire or something, so then you have the schools, all the for the for things. So that's how your garbage and thing will be picked up, right? So right, so the thing is, the fact is, the economy in very dire straits, very very dire straits, right? And it'll be interesting to see, right, how this government will maneuver in terms of their first budget, right? Because all now you're still hoping that the price of oil and gas increase, right? Rise, um, and with deficit budgets from since 2010 to now, there will come a time of reckoning, right? Um, because you can't keep running, deficit budgets. It means you're not paying your way. You're spending more than you have in revenue. So there will be a time a time of reckoning that it just can't go on, and where it will end, is either it end by the IMF or something like that. So okay, so any more questions? I seem to lose you. Any questions from the audience? I don't know where Fearless disappeared to. Yes. So as I said, if anybody, yes, I'm not getting any questions from anyone. I don't know if people want to ask questions, could put it in the chat. Or somebody saying, why did I say going to the IMF is a good thing by Donna Walcott? I'm not saying going to the IMF is a good thing. Um, I'm saying if to choose between the IMF and China, right? You know, is a tough choice, right? It's come like, you know, between the devil and the deep blue sea. But as I said, with IMF, the terms of the agreement are more transparent than with getting a Chinese loan, right? Because several countries, because they don't hold you to meeting, you know, they don't require to be as disciplined as the IMF, right? In terms of meeting strict conditionalities, and then you know, people take the governments take the loan and stuff like that, and as I said, because they are not held to any strict conditionality, sometimes the loans don't end up doing what they are supposed to do or what it was intended or borrowed for, right? And some of the onerous repayment terms lead to a situation like what happened in the case of Sri Lanka, where because they couldn't repay the Chinese loan, the Chinese government seized their port. All right, so so that's it. So is in terms of as I said, one is transparent, the other is not. So and so for the Chinese loans, they are quite the repayment terms are quite onerous. Okay, so okay, that's so there are seeing questions coming in here, which is good. As it stands, let me take them. Can we well, right, what is the state of the economy, right? Of the economy is in dire straits, right? We are in trouble, right? So I could use some figures that was put out by Roger Hussein, and I have no doubt, I have no mean or reason to doubt the figures because they are central bank figures, right? To tell you how the economy is, so the central bank data for June 2025, where foreign exchange reserve basically fall to the lowest levels in almost 20 years to US 4.9 billion, right? It was US 6.9 billion in 2019, right? Where the gross foreign reserves, it fell from US 6.9 billion in 2019 to US 4.9 billion in June 2025. So that's a decrease of 2 billion, right? Then we have the external debt increasing from US 4.2 billion, right, to 5.76 billion, right? Net forex reserves, okay, moved from a surplus of US 2.7 billion to a deficit of US 864 million. So basically, Trinidad and Tobago is a net external debtor. So the economy is really in a bad state. And to answer the next question that follow on from that, no, at this point in time, I can't see how the government could afford a 10% wage increase, right? Because that means every year, you understand, the government wage bill increasing by some millions, well, right? Or even being close to like $1 billion. So unless there's some increase in revenue, either from higher oil and gas prices or from some diversification of the economy. And as I said, diversification, you cannot just wave a magic wand and say that you are diversified. And if people listen carefully, even the new government minister, Kennedy Swarat Singh, right? I can't remember what his portfolio is really. This UNC government, how to change up the different portfolios. But if in one of his many statements, basically he's saying it will take about 5 years or more for the economy to turn around. Okay. I don't know how much people pay attention to it, right? On the campaign trail, they made you feel that it will be, they could just snap the finger and the economy will be diversified, right? But when the reality hit, now he's saying it will take about 5 to 10 years before you could start to see the fruits of some of the measures that they are taking. Okay, so right, so that's that. Let me see. I don't want to miss out any question. I've seen one here. Should we float the dollar? That's a good question, right? Right. Let me see. I just want to scroll back up because I don't want to miss any question, right? I was seeing a long question here. Sorry, I just don't want to miss out. I don't want anybody to feel shortchanged. So I think in this chat it scrolled up, so I can't see it when I was talking about oil and gas. So, okay, with our oil, gas, and petrochemicals export to the U.S. under threat by ongoing U.S. tariff, what other products should the government be diversifying into short and long term? That is a difficult question to answer, right? Basically, the government should be trying to incentivize the private sector in order to increase their exports, right? And maybe also in terms of services, right? Trying to get into services. Okay. I know there was a plan by the last government to create this international financial center at the waterfront. I think with Richard Young was in charge of that. I don't know how far that has gotten, right? But the fact of the matter is the economy needs to diversify. And then there were a number of areas that were identified in terms of shipbuilding, right? Because in terms of a number of yachts come down when the weather is bad into Chagaramas, you're identified in things like ship or boat building. Of course, the creatives, right? So a number of areas were identified, right? And I know also the last government were trying to have a sort of dry dock in at the port in La Brea. Okay, so these sort of services, and as I said, some of it were identified before. I think they had identified about between 4 and 7 areas where diversification could take place, right? In terms of offering services for yachts and things come to mind, then dry docking, investing in the creatives, the creative industry, Okay. And then I know the last government, they had something like a special economic zone. I think they were trying to set up in Point Lisas, and I think one company, in terms of manufacturing suitcases, have set up there, right? So that was one, right? So that's a next question, all right? So seeing that the government mash up the TRA and property tax, what could be the next move for revenue? Only the government alone could answer that, because the government just seemed to believe that for some strange reason, they believe that money just appears right out of the thin air for governments, right? But it doesn't work like that. As you can see, the government is finding great difficulty, right? Salaries being late, right, for some government departments and stuff like that. Money is hard to come by, and as the saying goes, it takes money to care. You could promise the world and say, you'll give people this, you'll give people that, you'll give, but the thing is, everybody is asking, where is the money is going to come from, right? And then you move from we'll find the money to now, God's willing, we're going to do it, right? So it's just they're hoping that they get lucky and either find some more oil and gas, or the oil price increase, right? Oil and gas price increases. So as of now, I see no tangible evidence that the government is trying to generate new revenue streams. Okay, as a matter of fact, even in terms of energy, a lot of the things that Munilal is announcing is things that were in place from the last government. Okay. Hussein and company don't know, right? But talking about moving away from CPEP, right? The thing is, right, and as you can see, the effects of CPEP, right? When I read, the online papers and listening news from a peer, right? The effects of the CPEP being closed down, right? In terms of grass, overgrown grass, and rubbish not being picked up and stuff like that, clogged drains and stuff, right? In any society, it will always have people who are not sort of highly skilled, right? And the CPEP was one way in which the government, right, decided to give them some sort of meaningful employment, right, in return for a wage, right? Now, one could argue that CPEP has really gotten out of hand, but it's not only one government problem. As a matter of fact, CPEP was even bigger during the UNC time between 2010 to 2015, right? So, but one could say now the present prime minister saying that Trinidad and Tobago has become a nation of grass cutters, right? Everybody cutting grass, which is a bit disingenuous, because she didn't mention the fact that the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service, right, had a lot of programs going on where people were getting a stipend and developing their skills and their knowledge base, right? And now she's arguing that she's going to invest in TV, technical and vocational education, right? TVET, Technical Vocational Education and Training, right? And give them a stipend, but which is the same thing that the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service was actually doing, right? So that was a bit disingenuous on her part. But what else is new when it comes to the Prime Minister in making these sort of comments, right? CPEP could be restructured in such a way to get people to develop their skills and to transition out of the program. It's not easy, but yes, it could be restructured, and people don't to have people just depending on CPEP. Okay, but as I said, right, in all societies, it always have it's just a fact of life. Some people will not be as skilled. One group would not be as skilled as another group, and in our type of societies like Trinidad and Tobago, those sort of programs is not just a program, right? It's also it's not just a program per se. It's a program that helps, right? Think about if it didn't have CPEP, right? The sort of possible social disorder and the fallout from that. So therefore, CPEP is a means of helping to hold the society together as well, right? In that people, if not for CPEP, will just be on the breadline. And as I said, what are the fallouts from that, right? In terms of the sort of social fragmentation in the society. Okay. Yes, so I dealt with some of those questions. Just let me know. Continue to scroll down. Should we float the Trinidad and Tobago dollar? No, that's a very good question. Now, yeah, there are two things, right? There's economics and there's politics, right? As I was telling Fearless earlier, basically, right, foreign exchange, one could examine it from the standpoint of supply and demand, right? People seem to be still treating it as a distribution problem. The fact is, it's just the supply of foreign exchange has dwindled, right? Now, in any demand and supply analysis, when the supply of something falls, it's scarce, it will drive up the price, right? And that price, right, is the exchange rate. Okay, so with as we said, with it falling from 6.9 billion in 2019 to 4.9 billion in 2025, one may say, well, then, if you have a scarce commodity, right, demand and supply analysis to tell you, in order to find an equilibrium, you must drive up the price in order to, if you wish, ration out that scarce supply, right? But that's the economics. But the politics is, any government who go and devalue, right, will face a serious political backlash, because Trinidad and Tobago, being an economy that imports nearly everything, right, you'll be importing inflation, okay? Because now you'll have to, let's say, give up more Trinidad and Tobago dollars in order to get a US dollar, right? And with devaluation, it tends to drive up the price of imports while it's supposed to make your exports cheaper, right? But Trinidad and Tobago main exports in terms of hydrocarbon, right, is not affected by those sort of price is not fixed in the way like for normal goods and services, right? So, right, devaluation could only make like your manufacturing, exports and stuff more competitive, okay? But as I said, it will be a heavy burden to bear, right, for the consumers, right, because of Trinidad and Tobago's heavy import bill, right? You don't have the as we call import substitution, right, to substitute the imports with local goods. Okay, so in this case, the politics might trump the economics, right? And that it will be a very unpopular decision that could cost you at the polls. Okay. So, Mr. Henry, in your explanation, since the economy is contracted, money is scarce, so interest rates would be high. Right? I don't know what is the interest rate in Trinidad and Tobago, but as from my what is the prevailing interest rate? But from my knowledge of it, it is usually quite higher than certainly over in the UK, right? So as I said, I don't know what is the current interest rate in Trinidad and Tobago, but as I do know it is much higher than the interest rates over here. Right. So if the economy is so bad, why the Prime Minister keep adding so much people to her cabinet? Then she's saying something in one breath and doing something completely different. That's a good question. I can't understand why the cabinet is so large, right? But you have to keep all your your various interests, right? Your disparate interests. You have to try to appease them. So it's a case of finding jobs for the boys and the girls, right? Because of the as they call the correlation of the willing, you have to try to give jobs to all the different groups that make up the coalition. Okay, so you have to give Philip Edward Alexander a job. So even though the housing ministry have 3 ministers, right? The substantive, the minister, and then 2 other ministers in the Ministry of Housing. First time I ever hear that where one ministry have basically 3 ministers. It's just trying to find jobs for okay, so find jobs for the different groups that make up the coalition. Yes, Mr. Manning did intend for CPEP to be a transition program from the outset, right? Yes, so I've seen, as I said, trying to get, since the world is moving away from oil and gas, solar, right, and going solar, would it be profitable for the government to invest in that refinery again? Investing in that refinery, given the way how refineries are going across the world, right? People, believe that, Trinidad and Tobago has a divine right to have a oil refinery. Many refineries across the world have closed there. I think even a week or 2 ago, I think one in the US has closed, right? And for that refinery, if that refinery comes on board as I think I saw, right, while the government has created jobs for Kevin Ramnarayan and them have this group looking at restarting the refinery, but Oando, which is the same company that they say they go and scrap the deal, that the last government had chosen as the person to restart the refinery. At Oando, I think, announced in the Nigerian newspapers that they and the new government have an agreement to restart the refinery. But if Oando come and restart that refinery, I bet you they will never take on the amount of workers that Petrotrin had. Right? It will be a much more slimmed down refinery, and they maybe know where they're getting the oil in order to import and then refine. But I'm sure it will be on very thin margins, and it will have to be very efficient. Okay, and we don't know if that company will put out the money to upgrade the plant, or if they want the government to do it, right? But it'll be interesting to see, right? I understand what you are saying. People didn't listen to Dr. Rowley and was fooled by the UNC, right? Either false promises, right? Yeah, well, that's it. You promise the moon and stars, right? And then you have some good marketing, right? And people were basically 10 years of austerity, right? People just couldn't take no more, right? So as I said, it's the same thing happened to the Conservative Party in the UK. In the case of the Conservative Party, is they even longer, from since 2010, right, to 2025, right? Well, to 2024, when they had the election, right, there's 14 years of austerity. And then the problem was exacerbated after COVID. So people with the high cost of living and stuff, people just couldn't. And the PNM government suffered that same fate as well. Plus, well, of course, with crime and everything, people weren't listening. Right, and they believe, well, in the promises of the UNC, but we have to just wait and see, right? But if the first 100 days is anything to go by, it doesn't look good. But we just have to wait and see. Even in war with India, Pakistan got approval from IMF going for the 24th time. Yes, a number of country, of course, Pakistan bankrupt, but has nukes that's like pulling up from, okay, for a food bank. Okay. No, I remember some years ago, I think it was in the 80s, South Korea had went to the IMF too, but they went to the IMF from a position of strength. Yeah, they had some cash flow problems, but their economy was sound, and so therefore they got terms that were less onerous than other countries. Okay. UNC, okay. That was what CPAP was to do, help you to get your bearings and then make something. Yeah. True, that's it in terms of, that was the original intention of CPAP. UNC is basically doing the same nonsense as the last tenure, except with no Cornelius. Okay. Well, the last tenure, UNC had a lot of money, right? Well, for 4 or 35 years, and then it is said they bankrupt the economy because they were just spending, because between 2010 to 2014, oil prices was well over $100 a barrel. Now they find out they have to govern without the kind of money that they had in between 2010 and 2014. And it is not proven simple, right? So So that's it, right? Yes, Kamala is trying to please everybody, right? Yes, she's trying to please everybody in the party so that yes, with coalition, but the her hand is stronger this time than the last because um in the last People's Partnership there were disparate, basically separate parties that make up the People's Partnership. So you had COP, you have the Tobago, you had Top from Tobago and stuff. So there were different parties, but now Han is stronger because even the Labour representatives they went on a UNC ticket. So now it's the UNC, right? So and not separate parties. They made separate interest groups, but Clyde Elder and Ernesto Casa from Library and Point respectively go on a UNC ticket. So basically it's one party, right? So that has strengthened the hand, right? Compared to the 2010 to 2015. What do you think about privatization of state enterprises? Surely in the short term, there will be government revenues, but what is the longer term impact on consumers, society? Now, if you privatize the state enterprises, right, be prepared, right, to expect the prices will increase, right? The price of the service will increase. Okay. The thing is in terms of how efficient there will be, and if you get in a service, right? So for instance, if you privatize water, right, is or electricity is what is the quality of your service, but you will have to pay for it. Definitely it will increase, right? And sometimes privatization doesn't always work. It is it doesn't always work as with the privatization of the railway system in the UK. Is one of the most costly and inefficient service in a developed country. As a matter of fact, they are beginning to renationalize parts of the rail system, right? So privatization in of itself may not necessarily work, right? Maybe the government and the private sector could come together in a public-private partnership for some of these state enterprises, right? And try to get them to be more efficient. But then you always have the problem of, as we say, job for the boys and job for the girls in terms of finding work within these enterprises for your supporters. Okay, so right, what have they done in 100 days? Well, you all who live in Trinidad will be able to tell me. From what I'm seeing, I'm not seeing much, right? Except in terms of your stand your ground legislation and your you in terms of the legislative agenda, the Prime Minister's pension bill, the Children's Life Fund, and then you stand your ground legislation, and you say you're keeping up your promises, but so far you haven't kept the promise of paying 10%, right? So one will just have to wait and see. 100 days is not enough, right? But it's not enough to in terms of seeing sort of concrete results, but it is enough to one could see the direction of travel, right? And that you could know whether there's a good possibility that the government will just be floundering and wouldn't keep its promises, or the government is on the right track. Okay, so that's at least the 100 days will give you a good indication of as I said, the direction of travel, right? Didn't Thatcher close all the bus routes in the UK, forcing elders in rural areas to rely on volunteers with mini buses for travel? I am not sure, as I didn't move to the UK during the Thatcher times, but basically Thatcher privatized thing like British Telecom, BT, right? And privatized the railways, right? Also things like water and a number of utilities. Okay, and basically closed down a lot of the coal mines and basically moved the hub of the economic activity to London in terms of the financial financial center, London becoming a major financial center, right? So that's why in certain parts of the UK, they hate Thatcher, particularly up in the north where she closed down a whole lot of, she basically damaged a whole lot of people's lives by closing down the coal mines. All right, so yes, it will be hard to bring her down. And strangely enough, she still seems, because I was looking at her greeting people on the day of when I had the ship, people going for going to do their various, going for their observations and surgeries on the ship, and she came across with the rain pouring to greet people, and people were beside themselves, auntie Cams, and one lady reached out to kiss her until the other tell her you can't kiss the prime minister. So she still have a lot of support among the elderly African women pensioners. A whole lot of them were just, as I said. So yes. And given that she now has all the power, right? And she don't have to kind of more or less appease the different people from different parties, right? It'll be much more difficult to rein her in, right? Yeah, so okay, they were paid actors. I'm not. I don't know. You live in Trinidad, so you may know. From what I see, it seemed she always seemed to have a crowd. Well, maybe I don't know if it's they walk with a crowd for her to for thing. I don't know. It would be interesting. Well, if they were really paid, I can't see. Yes, the waterfront crew. Always remind me in was 2014 or 2015, the same CPEP people who they like to pour scorn and abuse, marching around the Red House in the yellow jerseys, and didn't even know what is being debated inside of the house. But they come to support their leader, right? And it was same CPEP people. So, but that's it. Yes, the 10% now is unlikely unless there's some miraculous increase in the revenue streams. I can't see it as it stands right now. Because as I said, is when you give the 10%, remember every year you keep adding about over 500 million to your bill, right? So, and when it comes to back pay, over $1 billion, right? So it's so that's what she's saying. As I said, notice in terms of how the language changed from we're going to find the money to give them to God's willing, we will keep our promise, and then to tell, I think this was Akash who asked the question, if you have money to give us some, right? Okay, so you move from being confident, we'll find the money and pay, to God's willing, we're going to, and as a commentator was saying, when people start using the terms like God's willing, we're going to find the money, I think it means water is more than flour, as we say in the local parlance. Right. Yes. So yes. So if it could have been done, it would have been done already, and they will say, "Well, look, we keep our campaign promises." But it clearly cannot be done, and it'll be interesting to see in the new budget, right? Because as I say, keep in mind, Trinidad and Tobago has been running deficit budgets for well close to 15 years. I think it's from since 2010, or certainly from 2015 or so. So, I think it's going back to 2009. We're running deficit budgets, spending more than we getting in terms of revenue. So, as I said, a day of reckoning will come. That is just not sustainable, right? That is just not sustainable, that you could keep running deficit budgets and getting away with it. Okay, so. Yeah, so that's it. And I don't know how Fearless is not coming back, but I think I will have to wind up soon because it's coming up to close to 3 a.m. in the morning here. Yeah, so is there anything the British government is doing well for their economy? TNT can borrow to have us do better here. The British economy is, labor has become very unpopular in a short space of time, and so much so that Sir Keir Starmer could be a one-term prime minister, right? Because the economy still is not growing, but they are attracting some investment, and basically they have signed trade deals with India and the US, right? Because of Britain left the European Union, so they have to now to find trade deals in other markets. And as I said, actually, Narendra Modi was here last week or so. He came in quietly, either last week or week before, in order to sign a trade deal with Britain, right? So they are trying to invest and saying that they are doing everything in order for the economy to grow. Although some of the chancellor of the exchequer, which is the equivalent of the minister of finance, is a lady here, Rachel Reeves. Some of the government measures has clearly negatively impacted growth, because they say they don't want to increase the tax on working people, but what they do is they raise NIS contribution for employers, and it means employers now have start to cut back on the amount of people they could employ, because of course they also raise the minimum wage and stuff like that. So people saying it's causing employers to employ less people because their costs has gone up, right? So yet again, people accusing Labour of being just as the Conservatives in terms of with the same austerity, because they had taken away the winter fuel payments to pensioners, and it caused a big uproar here, right? As I said, the government become very unpopular. So in terms of possibly what we can learn is in terms of the public sector trying to be more efficient, right, and also try to attract investment. That's yeah. Right. Okay. What do you think about a means test for our free health system? Too many wealthy clogging up the system, and the government gets blamed. Now that's a very good, a very, but yet again, no, that is not bad, in terms of but the health system, it comes like the UK health system with the NHS, which is free at the point of service, right? But with anything that is free, of course, right? There's a burden on the system, right? And people was criticizing the last government and stuff. Some of them should come and live in the UK, where people were on the corridor, on trolleys and stuff, waiting to be seen, accident and emergency being full, and how long you had to wait to see a GP, and you cannot get proper dentists, and thing, whole areas without dentists, people taking pliers and pulling out their own teeth. Right? Hey, PLS, you're back?
Right? It's pressure in the piece, yes.
Yeah, so yeah, no problem. So yeah, answering a whole lot of questions here. So yes, you know, the thing is, what the UK had done to at a point in time was what we call like the ring fence some money, like you charge a health surcharge, and you ring fence that money, meaning that the money you collect goes direct only to the health service, right? It's ring fence to the health service. So there's a possibility, but yet again, we come back to the perennial problem in Trinidad, and when I say that, it doesn't mean that I'm talking down Trinidad, but it's just a fact. People just don't like to pay for services. They want everything, right?
To be free.
The man who's selling the doubles, he don't want to pay tax, right? But if he or his children get sick, he run to the hospital,
Yes.
right? No matter how much money he make, right? He or she make, in terms of they'll make, right? Some of them will build big houses off of selling doubles, and they wouldn't pay. Yeah, so if you come and try to tax them, the government wicked at this or that, but you want to drive on the roads, you want hospitals, you want free school for your children, so it just don't work like that. It just don't work like that. And governments have to be blamed too, because when you tell the electorate that, the government will do this and the government will do that, it doesn't work like that, right? The money had to be coming from somewhere. Right. So, but as I said, because there was a time when they used to charge a health surcharge in Trinidad, I think it was either 100 or 200 or something like that. Right. But the thing is, as I said, like over here, when they do that, they ring fence that money, and it doesn't go to anything as it goes to the health service. And that's something that we could possibly look at doing in Trinidad. But, good luck in trying to tell people pay a health surcharge. Right.
Well, I do want to apologize to everybody on the live. I did experience, I try on all different
really,
devices.
but as I said, I get a whole lot of questions here, because since you go answering questions, so it's good. It's good in that sense. We lost nothing in that sense, because as the questions keep coming, austerity was created by Dr. Rowley. It was due to COVID-19, and oil price dropped to zero. Yeah, that's true. The government had no choice, and in the UK too. That's why I tell people, that's why the Conservatives get voted out. You see, people tend to forget, right, that during COVID, the governments borrow a whole lot of money, because remember, people over here, it was like you're on furlough, right? And in Trinidad, people were getting their salaries even when they were home,
Yeah.
right? But the government had to borrow for that. People which short memories tend to forget it. And they say the government wicked, the government thing, and your home, you know, and you're getting your thing, and now people's posting hate input if you want to, but our salary was never late, right? People now posting that our salaries were never late and we get paid even during COVID. Now in a few months, a lot of public sector departments late pay, right? Who lost their acting and all kind of thing. So, right, people forget, right, that but it's the same thing. As I keep saying,
Mhm.
remember Trump lost the election because of, well, lastly you could say because of COVID. But he lost just in 2020 to Biden because the people didn't like how he handled COVID, and plus the economy suffered. Right in the UK too, the UK borrow a whole lot of money, right? Because remember you're borrowing to keep livelihoods and lives, right? You know, uh, going, right? So so
Well,
people tend to forget that,
well,
So
I don't know if you address the issue of the 10% now 15% tariff. I don't know if you address that issue.
no, nobody asked about that, but um, now there there is I think there is a form of in terms of tariffs where you could get the well in case of Trinidad, like the exporter to the US to pay some of it, but tariffs mostly fall on the home consumers, in terms of the US, right? Now where it could come back to hurt Trinidad is that, because I think they say things like urea and stuff will be subject to the tariff. Now urea and these kind of nitrogenous fertilizers, right, is basically like an input, right, to agricultural produce. So
Yes.
it means if the agricultural costs, if the input prices increase, right, because you're using these nitrogenous fertilizers, right, urea and stuff like that, um, it means the producers or who grows the crops will increase their prices because the right, and if some of those goods are now exported back to Trinidad, it will reflect that with an increased price, right? Given that how Trinidad tend to import a lot of things, particularly right from the US, so we could be in a sense importing inflation, right? Because it means if urea and these some of the other products attract tariffs, and these products are inputs, right, or raw materials that are used, right, in helping to grow these agricultural products. Naturally, the finished product, the final product, will be in order to pass on that cost, right? They'll pass it on to the consumer. And if they export those goods to Trinidad, it means they'll be exported at a higher price. And of course, the Trinidad consumer will have to pay. So, right. So it will make us less competitive. But Will said that some other countries have higher tariffs than Trinidad, right? Some of Trinidad and Tobago competitors have higher tariffs than Trinidad. So, um, in a sense, Trinidad might be um, worse off compared relative to other countries that have tariffs of 50% and stuff. We lost Fearless again. Yep, exactly. Let's export to the US because of this tariff. That's why we have to look at other. Yes, that's we have to look at other markets as well. Okay, then. I think, yeah, we lost Fearless again. As I said, now it's almost 3 o'clock. So, yes, on CARICOM scale, we would lose. Yeah, it's getting it's 3 o'clock. Well, it's 3 o'clock. It's 2:57 here, right? So I guess it's be approaching 10 o'clock in Trinidad. So yeah, so let's wrap up, and maybe I could come back next time and yeah, thanks very much, and thanks for having me. So and thanks for all the questions. They were very interesting questions, very well thought out questions. So I hope I was able to answer them. Okay then. So I think I'm gonna take my leave here. Right. And thanks very much, because as I said, it's getting late. All right. Okay, so Fearless, if you're hearing me, thanks for having me, and thanks to the audience for the yeah, I'm in the UK, so it's 2:58 right now, right? So yes, so maybe next time I'll come back and answer some more questions, right? So yeah. So blessed night to you all as well.